Welcome to the next part of this video series. As we discussed in the previous video, the data that we downloaded from Kaggle are in the CSV format. CSV, as we previously mentioned, stands for comma separated value file. And then, as I also mentioned, we used the pandas, which is the pandas package in Python, in order to read this file. So as I mentioned, there's a way for the Python to read the CSV file by giving it a command in the Jupyter project notebook that we discussed. And remember, all this is saved in your project folder. Okay, so the first thing you need to do, and again, like I said, we're not taking you into the ins and outs of this. You're just going to kind of copy and paste and do this in order so that you can do it. So, because that's the best way for beginners to learn. And you kind of pick it up as you go along. So you import the pandas package, the package to read the file as PD. And then you're reading the data. We're going to start with the train data. And then from here, this is going to show you the dimensions of the file itself. So it turns out that there are 891 rows, and and of course this is found out by the data.shape. So that command will scan the file and tell you that the dimensions are 891 rows and there's 12 columns. So the columns are the variables, and the rows are like, it's a record. Think about it as like a record, right? A record for each person. Again, she discusses the data dictionary, which we already copied, if you will remember from the previous video, and pasted into. I like to paste it into the text editor here, and it's just helpful. It's helpful to have handy as you're working on this, because sometimes there's just a ton of data, and also it really matters. Like 0 means they died. 1 means that the number 1 is in terms of the survival variable, means that they survived. So having that detail is important when you're doing analysis. And then here are the notes that I told you to read. Hopefully, I'm sure you did. And so that's kind of the setup. And then from there, we can give it a command to look at the first 5 rows of the data. So this head command, this dot head, and then the dot head will display, and then the closed empty parentheses will run the command. It's called a function, but again, we're keeping this high level for you all. And one thing I forgot to mention is above in this command, important, she labeled data to equal the train.csv file. So that way, when you say data here, it knows that it's going to read and display the first 5 rows for the train.csv, not the test, not gender underscore submission, but the train file. So that's just wanted to kind of connect the dots there for you. And then this kind of just shows you the first 5 lines. You see the passenger ID. You see whether they survive. So Mr. Owen Harris died. He was a 3rd-class passenger, a male, of course, 22 years old. Here's all the rest of the information. Mrs. John Bradley survived. She was in a 1st-class passenger, female, 38 years old. Tells you where they embarked. And again, this is why having that data dictionary is handy, because we can check it and see that the embarkment was at the Cherbourg port. So again, so this kind of shows you the shape of the data. Like you can also see that the fare is a decimal number with decimals. You can see that the cabin is a mixture of text of text and an integer together. Also, that it has the NaN, which is a missing value. So there's a passenger ID. So there's a lot of information here, and it's helpful. And so that's just sort of the overview to checking the information here. And I'm going to go ahead before we end this video and just do it in my project notebook so we can keep up. Okay, so that shows you the dimensions, and then we're going to do the head. And interestingly, this is the head. Interestingly, something they didn't cover, which I'll cover real quick, is let's say you want to look at the last 5 rows of the whole thing. You can do that simply by typing data, the same data up here, dot tail. So think about a quarter, right? Has a head and a tail. So if you type tail and give the function, it will display the last 5. And how do we know? Because we know that there are 891 rows. And also something else interesting, just a factoid, is that the counting begins at 0, not 1. So these are the first, that's why this is 0 to 4. And this is 896 to 890. There is no record 891 because the counting started at 0. So, anyway, it gives the same information, the same view, but at the end of the file. So that concludes this video. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to continuing the project video series.